Thank you for tuning into this 5th episode of Aquarius Farms. Today we're going to discuss the anatomy of one of our polyculture beds and how do we plant it and what do we plant. Now, given that this is our first year in operation, a lot of what we're doing is somewhat experimental, and some of it's likely not to go well, some of it probably go great, and it's going to be a mixed bag, but we're treating this as an opportunity to learn. Now, one of the first things that we did in order to sort of mitigate some of the risk as a startup farm was that we went sort of and cast a very broad net as far as the varieties that we grow. I would say that we have at least 30 different varieties of tomatoes, maybe as many peppers, probably 15 varieties of squash, a dozen or so varieties of zucchini, both as different types, like a pickling cucumber versus a slicing versus a heirloom like an Armenian. Really so that we could mitigate some risk. If some of them don't do well, we'll know not to use those next year, and the ones that do incredible, we're obviously going to work into our regular production cycle. Now, at the base of this bed at the very end, as you can see, rather than trying to move all those rocks that we've picked out of the bed off-site, we've essentially created a perimeter around the bed. It serves as a little bit of a bumper, lets people know where not to step, and also was, for the real reason is it was an exceptionally lazy way of not dealing with moving a lot of rock. So at the base of this mound, right behind the border, we have a scattering of Swiss chard seeds. I think it's ruby red. Then we move up to zucchinis of multiple flavors. Actually, we try to plant them together. So this, I think, is like green Ford Hook zucchini, which is a fairly early variety. Then we have some tomatillos, and then in between the tomatillos, sort of going, I guess, diagonally down between the rows of tomatillos and squashes, is a row of tall herbs. I think in this case it's summer savory and some basil. And that, again, is letting us it's letting us take advantage of the vertical growing space inside of our enclosure as well as the horizontal. And it also has the side benefit of the zucchinis being an effective ground cover and not having to mulch as much. Now, moving down to the side of the bed, this bed is not completely planted. It's probably the most complete, but it's missing a few things. At the top, we have a row of tomatoes, which are eventually going to get trellised with T-posts that are stuck in an angle so the tomatoes hang out closer to our face. Then we have a row of squashes on the corners. The zucchinis are yellow summer, I'm not sure which. We have another row of tomatoes. In this case, they're a potato leaf variety. I'm not sure which one. Again, we just planted too much to keep track of that, although we did write it down. And then we have another row of zucchinis. And then below that, we have yet one more row of herbs. These are more lower growing varieties like your thymes and oreganos, more your creepers. Below that, there is a small row of marigolds to help with pest management, which the herbs benefit us in that aspect as well. And then in between the rows of this top row, or the middle row of tomatoes, at least I'm not tongue-tied today, and the zucchinis down here, there'll be one additional row planted, and this time it will be peppers, a mix of hot and sweet varieties. And again, we grew a lot of different diverse strains of all of our crops just to, again, mitigate risk. So that's an anatomy of our polyculture beds. The one thing I probably left out is there will be peas and beans scattered on stakes throughout this enclosure, and pretty close to nearly all the plants, essentially to fix nitrogen back directly into the root zone of our plants to correct the slight deficiency in our soil, which is really our only problem, and also to provide us with an additional crop in this same space. So thank you for watching the 5th installment of Aquarius Farms, and we look forward to having you watch us again soon.